The smell of roasting turkey should have filled me with warmth and anticipation. Instead, as I stood on my parents' front porch that crisp November morning, clutching a homemade pecan pie and my girlfriend Sarah's hand, all I felt was the familiar knot of anxiety that had lived in my stomach for the past 6 months. "You sure about this, Marcus?" Sarah whispered, her brown eyes searching my face. "We could still go to my sister's instead." I squeezed her fingers, drawing strength from her presence. "No, I need to do this. They're my family. They'll come around." How spectacularly wrong I was. The door swung open before I could knock, revealing my mother's forced smile. Linda Chen Morrison had perfected that expression over 37 years of marriage to my father, bright enough to fool strangers, hollow enough that those who knew her could see the strain beneath. "Marcus! Sarah!" she exclaimed, her voice pitched just a little too high. Come in, come in. Your father's in the living room watching the game." The house looked exactly as it had during my childhood. Same beige walls, same family photos arranged with military precision, same suffocating sense of expectations that could never quite be met. But something was different this year. The photos, I realized with a chill. The recent ones of Sarah and me from last Christmas, from my college graduation, from various family gatherings, they were gone. Dad didn't get up when we entered the living room. Robert Morrison sat in his leather recliner like a king on his throne, his salt and pepper hair perfectly combed, his flannel shirt pressed despite it being a casual day. He'd been a drill sergeant before becoming a high school principal, and he'd never really left either job behind. "Dad," I said, setting the pie on the coffee table. "Happy Thanksgiving." He grunted without looking away from the screen. "Game's almost over." Sarah shifted beside me, and I could feel her tension matching my own. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for one, and she'd weathered my father's cold politeness and loaded silences with grace. But lately, those silences had grown arctic. My younger sister Emma bounded down the stairs, her blonde ponytail bouncing. At 22, she still had the ability to light up a room, though even her smile seemed dimmed today. "Marcus!" She hugged me tightly, then turned to Sarah. "I'm so glad you're both here. I was afraid—" She caught herself, glancing nervously toward our father. "Afraid of what, Em?" I asked. Before she could answer, Dad's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Emma, go help your mother in the kitchen." "But Dad, Now!" Emma's face flushed, but she obeyed, shooting me an apologetic look as she hurried away. Sarah and I were left alone with my father, the football game providing the only sound in the increasingly uncomfortable silence. I'd always known my father was disappointed in me. Not the star athlete he'd hoped for, not following in his military footsteps, choosing social work over something more practical. But I'd thought we'd reached an understanding over the years. I was wrong about that, too. "So," Dad said during a commercial break, finally turning to look at us. His pale blue eyes were cold as winter sky. "I hear congratulations are in order." My heart leapt. Maybe Emma had told them about my promotion at the community center. Maybe this would be the breakthrough we needed. "Thanks, Dad. I didn't think I'd what? Find out my son's been living in sin? Planning to make it official without even having the courtesy to tell his family?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Sarah's hand found mine, her grip tight. "Dad, we were going to tell you today. We wanted to—" "Tell us what? That you're throwing your life away? That you're going to marry some girl we barely know and probably end up divorced like half the other idiots your age?" "Robert!" Mom's voice came from the kitchen doorway, sharp with warning. "That's enough." "No, Linda, it's not enough. He comes waltzing in here with his little girlfriend, thinking he's going to play house, and we're supposed to just smile and pretend it's wonderful." I stood up, my hands shaking. "Dad, Sarah isn't some girl. We've been together for 3 years. She's the woman I love, and yes, I asked her to marry me. I'm sorry we didn't tell you first, but nothing. Dad heaved himself out of his chair, all 6 feet of him towering over me, just like when I was a kid. You want to know what I think about this engagement? Robert, please, Mom tried again, but he ignored her. I think you're making the biggest mistake of your life. I think you're too young, too stupid, and too irresponsible to know what marriage means. And I think if you go through with this, you're no son of mine. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Sarah gasped beside me. Even the television seemed to have gone quiet. You don't mean that, I whispered. Dad's face was granite. Try me. Fine. The word came out stronger than I felt. If that's how you feel, then maybe we should go. Maybe you should. Sarah was already moving toward the door, tears streaming down her cheeks. I started to follow, then turned back. You know what, Dad? You're right about one thing. I am too young to know what marriage means, but I know what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean treating the person you love like garbage. It doesn't mean conditional acceptance. And it sure as hell doesn't mean disowning your own child because they didn't ask your permission to be happy. Get out of my house! Gladly. We left the pie on the coffee table. We left my childhood home. We left my family behind. The next 6 months were a blur of wedding planning, new apartment hunting, and therapy sessions where I tried to process the gaping wound my father's words had left. Sarah was incredible through all of it. Patient when I was angry, strong when I was weak, loving when I felt unlovable. Emma called constantly at first, begging me to reconcile, insisting Dad didn't mean it, that he was just scared of losing me. The calls gradually tapered off as it became clear that Dad very much did mean it. Mom sent a card for my birthday with a $20 bill inside and a note that said, "Love Mom," in handwriting that looked tired. We sent wedding invitations to my parents anyway. They came back unopened. Return to sender, written in Dad's familiar block letters across the front. That's when the real anger started. Not the hot, immediate rage I'd felt that Thanksgiving day, but something colder, more calculating. I'd spent 26 years trying to earn my father's approval, and he'd thrown me away over an engagement announcement. If he wanted to disown me, fine, but I wasn't going to make it easy for him. The plan started small. Dad was proud of his reputation in the community, the respected principal, the military veteran, the family man. He coached Little League, served on the church board, spoke at graduation ceremonies. His image meant everything to him. So I started chipping away at it. It began with social media. I'd never been particularly active online, but suddenly I was posting constantly. Pictures of Sarah and me looking blissfully happy. Updates about our wedding planning. Heartfelt posts about building your own family when your biological one abandons you. I made sure to tag every mutual acquaintance, every family friend, every person in Dad's social circle. The comments started pouring in. People who had no idea about our estrangement, expressing congratulations, asking why they hadn't heard the good news, wondering where the celebration was. Then came the questions Dad would have to answer. Why wasn't he excited about his son's engagement? Why hadn't he mentioned the wedding? Was everything okay with the family? I could imagine him fumbling for explanations, that control freak need to maintain appearances warring with his stubborn pride. But that was just the beginning. Dad's assistant at the high school was Mrs. Patterson, a sweet woman who'd known me since I was in elementary school. She followed me on Facebook and started commenting on everything. How proud she was, how she couldn't wait to see wedding photos, how she was sure my parents must be thrilled. I made sure to respond to every comment, thanking her for being more supportive than my own family had been. Nothing too dramatic, nothing overtly hostile. Just sad, disappointed son expressing gratitude for the kindness he wasn't getting at home. Word travels fast in small communities. Soon, half the town knew that Robert Morrison's son was getting married, and dear old dad wasn't speaking to him. The whispers started. What kind of father disowns his child over an engagement? What had really happened? Was there more to the story? Dad's carefully cultivated image began to crack. Emma called me crying after running into Mrs. Patterson at the grocery store. She asked me if it was true that Dad kicked you out for getting engaged, she sobbed. Marcus, everyone's talking about it. Dad's furious. He knows it's you posting all that stuff. Good, I said, and meant it. Let him be furious. This isn't like you. You're not vindictive. Maybe the old Marcus wasn't, but the old Marcus also thought his father loved him unconditionally. The wedding was beautiful. Sarah wore her grandmother's dress, and I wore the suit Mom had helped me pick out for job interviews before everything fell apart. Our friends filled the small ceremony venue, our chosen family celebrating our love in a way my biological family couldn't. The photos were spectacular. Professional shots of us laughing, crying, dancing, kissing. I posted every single one, along with captions about how perfect the day was, how surrounded by love we felt, how we couldn't have asked for anything more, except I made sure to mention it would have been nice to have our parents there to share in our joy. A small detail, easy to miss unless you were looking for it, but enough to plant seeds of doubt in the minds of anyone who saw them. The comments were everything I'd hoped for and more. Dozens of people expressing confusion and concern about my parents' absence. Questions about what could possibly keep a father from his son's wedding. Messages of support and bewilderment at the apparent family rift. Dad's phone must have been ringing off the hook. The coup de grace came 2 weeks after the wedding. The local newspaper, the same one that had featured Dad in their Educator of the Year article just 6 months earlier, ran a small human interest piece about local newlyweds. Sarah and I were featured prominently. Young professional couple, both dedicated to serving the community, recently married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends. The article mentioned that not all family members were able to attend, and included a quote from Sarah about how grateful we were for the love and support of our chosen family during this exciting time in our lives. Nothing accusatory, nothing directly critical. Just a subtle suggestion that something was amiss in the Morrison family dynamic, preserved forever in print for anyone curious enough to look. That's when Dad finally cracked. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Sarah and I were deep asleep in our new apartment, the one we'd found without any help from my parents, when my phone started buzzing insistently. Marcus! Dad's voice was rough, strained. We need to talk. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. It's 2 a.m, Dad. I don't care what time it is. You've made your point, okay? Enough. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid with me, boy. I know what you've been doing. All those posts, all that passive-aggressive bullshit about your chosen family and being supported through difficult times. You've been making me look like a monster. I've been telling the truth. You've been manipulating the situation to make me look bad, and we both know it. I got out of bed, moving to the kitchen so I wouldn't wake Sarah. You made yourself look bad, Dad. All I did was live my life and share my happiness with people who actually care about me. That's not... He stopped, and I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. Look, maybe I was harsh that day. Maybe I said things I shouldn't have said. Maybe? Fine, I was harsh. But you humiliated me, Marcus. Do you have any idea what it's been like? People looking at me sideways, whispering behind my back, questioning my parenting. I've been getting calls from church members, from colleagues, from parents of my students. Everyone wants to know what kind of father I am. The kind who disowns his son for getting engaged, apparently. I was angry. I was scared, okay? You're my boy, and I thought you were making a mistake, and I handled it wrong. But what you've been doing, this campaign to destroy my reputation, it's cruel. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Cruel? You want to talk about cruel? You threw me away, Dad. You looked me in the eye and told me I was no son of yours because I fell in love and wanted to get married. You missed my wedding because your pride was more important than your child's happiness, and now you're upset because people are asking questions about why? I didn't miss it by choice. You didn't want me there. We sent you an invitation. You sent it back. Silence stretched between us, filled with years of missed connections and stubborn pride. What do you want from me? He finally asked, and for the first time since that awful Thanksgiving, he sounded less like the authoritarian father I'd grown up fearing and more like a tired old man. I want you to understand what you did to me. I want you to feel a fraction of what I felt when you decided I wasn't worth loving anymore. I never said. You didn't have to say it, Dad. You showed me. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I missed your wedding. I'm sorry I let my fear make me into someone I don't want to be. The apology hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. I'm sorry too, I said finally. I'm sorry I felt like I had to hurt you back to make you understand. But I'm not sorry for marrying Sarah. I'm not sorry for standing up for myself. And I'm not sorry for refusing to accept conditional love. I do love you, son. I've always loved you. Then why was it so easy to throw me away? He didn't have an answer for that. Maybe there wasn't one. The reconciliation didn't happen overnight. It took months of awkward phone calls, tentative text messages, and family therapy sessions that left us all emotionally drained. Dad had to swallow his pride publicly, explaining to curious community members that he'd had a misunderstanding with his son, but that everything was fine now. His reputation recovered, though the cracks remained visible to anyone who looked closely enough. Mom cried when she finally met Sarah properly, apologizing over and over for not standing up to Dad, for not reaching out, for choosing peace over what was right. Sarah, being Sarah, forgave her immediately and completely. Emma was just relieved to have her family back together, even if the dynamic had fundamentally changed. The balance of power had shifted. Dad was no longer the unquestioned authority figure he'd been before. I was no longer the son desperately seeking approval. We had Thanksgiving dinner together the following year. Dad carved the turkey with shaking hands, his voice thick with emotion as he said grace, and specifically mentioned how grateful he was to have his whole family together. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, and I squeezed back. The pie I brought that year didn't get left behind. But even as we rebuilt our relationship, even as Dad walked Sarah down the aisle at our vow renewal ceremony, his idea, his way of making up for missing the first one, even as we slowly learned to love each other without conditions or expectations, I kept the screenshots. Every Facebook post, every photo, every comment that had contributed to the campaign that brought him to his knees. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that I was stronger than I'd thought, more resilient than I'd known. A reminder that sometimes when people hurt you deeply enough, you have to hurt them back before they understand the damage they've done. And a reminder that family isn't just about blood or tradition or meeting someone else's expectations. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept love that comes with conditions. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away completely before people realize they don't want to lose you. Dad learned that lesson the hard way. We both did. But in the end, maybe that's what made us stronger. Maybe that's what finally made us family.